Welcome to our new episode of Speak Revenue. Remember, revenue is not a goal, it's a result. But a result of what exactly? In this show, we turn our eyes from the output towards the input. We speak with sales leaders and entrepreneurs about their journey. Join us on our quest to uncover and learn the root causes of success. Let's unpack what works for them and what. Today, with our guest Alejandro Angel from Composely. Alejandro, bienvenido. Nice to have you. Thank you for joining.
Thank you very much, Steven. Thanks for inviting me.
It's a pleasure to have you. Alejandro, real quick for our audience, who are you? What do you do? Who do you do it for? And what makes you so successful?
So my name is Alejandro Angel. I'm originally from Colombia, and I'm the Chief Revenue Officer for a company called Composely. What we do is we create content, human written content and AI written content for marketers in order to support their SEO strategy. I've been in sales for about 11 years. And I've been with this company for 5 years. We have seen pretty rapid growth. We have gone from 0 to 5 million ARR in the first 4 years, and it's been a great journey.
I'm especially excited to have you here because we used to be something like competitors. I was in a company also creating machine generated content long before OpenAI and ChatGPT was a thing. I think we both have been selling machine generated content back in the day when people said, BS, that is impossible, that cannot work. So it's a very special pleasure to have you here today and discuss this. Real quick for our audience, Composely, you have AI generated content and human generated content. Real quick, how does it work? And who is it for?
So we started with human generated content. That was our bread and butter since we started a very good community of writers and in very specific industries. It's finding good writers is not easy. We get thousands of applicants every month, and we only hire 1% of the writers. It is hard, and also writers that can write for digital marketing and to support marketing initiatives. So that's what we've been doing since the beginning. For us, I know you started writing with which models way before we did. We started recently. We started this year and just was adapting to the ChatGPT and the AI becoming more of a mainstream kind of solution for these methods and for these goals. So we started more recently. We've seen good success, but we have realized that it's just for some use cases, depending what you're writing and what you're looking for, and just for some customers, depending what they're looking for. Our main goal always has been to how can we create the most impact for our customers, and always stepping back and thinking about that. And that's why we have separated and tried to figure out which is better for which customer and what are the better use cases for each.
As someone who has, just like you, sold content creation in the broad sense of the meaning for years, I want to take the time to discuss where machine written content versus human written content is, which is the right solution for which use case. But before we go there, for our listeners, we are all salespeople. Describe a little bit your go-to-market structure. And maybe we go along the customer journey. Who is your typical customer? What is your ICP?
Our ICP is mid-market companies, mid-sized market companies that have a marketing team that need support on scaling their content. Like SEO is the main strategy that we support that marketers are doing. For this, you need consistent content, like cadence, to be publishing consistent content month over month. You probably understand the content game. You are broadcasting one podcast a day, which is amazing. I can't believe you're able to pull that off. Very impressive. But
I have a fantastic team. I just have the pleasure to have those conversations, and there are great people behind me doing the real hard work.
There you go. That's the key, right? Like without a team, you can't make it. And that's what we do as far as Compostly. Like we are that team, that extension of your team to help you scale. We have clients that produce up to 600,000 words per month. That's just to keep it into context. It's 600 articles of 1,000 words each, right? Just to make it easy math. But obviously they write different size of articles. And this is to support and educate their audience, right? Like it is
Mhm.
very important that these so there's two things about the quality of the content that it needs to be basically it needs to fulfill two goals. One, all of this content at the end of the day, like 98% of the content that we produce is to fulfill the SEO, like being searchable and being found by Google and being seen as an authority by Google. And this brings us back to the Google algorithm and the evolution of the Google algorithm. If you go back 10, 15 years ago, you could write content that wasn't great. You just stuff a lot of keywords and Google would give you the ranking. And when someone would look for your business on Google, hey, I need the best lawyer in LA, you would pop up first and then you will get that lead and the intent is there as well. Going back a little bit in general as far as SEO,
For
anyone that
those
is,
who, for those listeners
not listen.
who don't remember, there was a time when you could take Microsoft Excel, and if you were smart, you could abuse it to make it a text spitter and just create really crappy copy with a lot stuffed with a lot of keywords like phrases, and then you would just place the keywords in it, produce the content, push it out on the website, draw the traffic, and make 10, 20K a month just with AdSense. This was what, maybe 15, 20 years ago.
15,
um,
20 years ago, I would say.
yeah, those
And
were the glory
and
days.
that's exactly. And then we had the glory days in a sense to create as far as sales and marketing. We were like happy we could
Mhm.
push this. But at the same time, the blog was taking a second stage on a website. If you tried to push a blog 15, 20 years ago to a CEO, they would say, like, why would I need a blog? Why would I put a blog? No one clicks
Right,
on the blog. No one's going to read
right.
it. And at 20 years ago, you would say, they don't need to read it. Don't worry about it. Put it there and you'll see that you're going to get traffic with better intent. So the Google
Mhm.
algorithm is the police. It's for the ones that are not as familiar with SEO. SEO basically it's a lead generation strategy that is going to bring you
Mhm.
leads at a way more cost effective than paid, right, or Google
Mhm.
ads or anything
Mhm.
like that. And a lot of people also see it as more trustworthy because it's not being advertised as an ad. But basically, yeah, this blog, then it start the Google algorithm is like the police. It was obviously generated by Google to make sure that Google still gives relevant results and doesn't lose that search traffic. Because why would I go to Google if I look for something that gives me the wrong response, right? So
Yeah.
people they will start losing their users. So this Google algorithm is basically just imagine a million of spiders that are programmed to crawl all the internet to find the best result, the
Mhm.
best question, the best
Mhm.
answer to anyone's question. So they're ongoing all the time, but the
Mhm.
internet and the content on the internet grows like crazy, keeps growing every day. And it is hard. Like they can't send these spiders everywhere to like search and research everything. They go back to sites that are producing good content, that are realizing that doing well. And going back to AI, machine learning, and also like the advancements on technology as far as software, and that has Google is one of the number one companies that have got advancements on this and on
Mhm.
AI and everything. When you look behind it, they might have not just make it mainstream as fast as ChatGPT, but they've been working on it way longer than
Oh
OpenAI,
yeah.
and
No, no
they're
doubt.
way more advanced internally. So this Google algorithm can know and get better and better. And now it's at a point, let's forward those 20 years for now, that you need a really good writer, really good content, high quality content that knows, not even someone that can do the research, but also have written about the industry and knows about the industry in order to write about that for Google to recognize it. The great thing about that is also that the audience is getting good content, it's getting good response. If I'm looking, how should I start a sales team? I'm going to find really good content that it's actually going to give
Yes.
me pretty
Yes.
good guidance. So that's
Yes.
great. So there's the two goals there: become a thought leadership and get that branding out there, but
Where
also the SEO side.
I would challenge you on this. I think you can find content for every topic on the planet, very deep into every niche. I think the quality of the content has deteriorated over the last 10, 15 years, because 15 years ago it was an expert writing this, and it was people like you and me. We marketers, we ruin everything. Whatever you give us, you gave us email, we ruined it. You gave us blogs, we ruined them by taking any intern, any non-qualified person, and just give them a list of keywords, write this article about this topic, and the quality very often is, well, questionable at least. But before we go deeper into this content topic, I want to go back a little bit and pack your sales approach. You said you're talking to marketing executives. Is that correct? Still?
Not executive. We're talking that has changed a little bit actually, but yeah,
Mm-hmm.
be from
So
manager,
who's your
content
persona? Who
manager
are
to
you selling to?
VPs. We're selling to companies, mid-size marketing companies that have a marketing team that can use our tool and that need to scale that content
Mhm.
in order to support their SEO
But
strategy.
who
So
is
we're
the
talking
person
to
in that company that you want to talk to?
So there's different persons that we start conversations with. The user, which is the manager level supervisor.
Mhm.
Then we talk to directors. That directors used to be and VPs used to be the ones being the decision maker. That has changed this year. This year has the decision making has gone up a level, and now we're
Mhm.
talking more to presidents of marketing, CMOs, and for smaller companies, sometimes we talk to CEOs. Usually, it's just CMO, the highest we go. And this year, we have seen more involvement of higher level employees in the decision making.
How do you reach out to them? Is
So
it outbound? How do you go about that?
So we do both. I think, yeah, since we're in sales and you asked me a little bit about the sales structure, we'll dive into the sales structure because we
Yes.
know we're passionate about content, but the people that are listening us probably want to know what happens with the sales structure. So I'll go back with that and then I'll go into inbound and outbound in more detail. So to get a good picture, I will run through the history of Compostly since I started. That would give you a good idea. And I think for our listeners that are starting a company that are more of a startup mode, what's going to
Mhm.
happen, how do you grow? And I think the best advice, or at least I wouldn't say advice necessarily, but also like experience and sharing my what I've been through, is been growing this company from 0 to 5 million ARR. And basically we started with founder led set. It was the founder and I, the CEO and founder, and myself, just reaching out however we could. We used LinkedIn. We, even though we said at the beginning we would never spray and pray, we did spray and pray. We did different things. My LinkedIn account got locked one time because I was like reaching out and talking to one, and which I'm not proud of. Like I would go back, I wouldn't do it. But at the same time, we're in sales and we do what we need to do and start those conversations. Then we started some good conversations through. It was mostly outbound. At that time, the inbound wasn't our strong avenue, but we were starting to play with Google ads and PPC. So in that sense, we started making conversations. And the good thing about founder-led sales is that you're going to learn what people are saying about your product, what they're looking for. You're going to be, it's more of an interview than a sale, right? Like you're trying to sell your product, but you are modifying the conversation as you go. And I think only a
So
founder can do
important.
that,
So
knowing the
important.
vision.
This feedback loop early on. I see so many tech founders, because many founders are tech people who steer away from having customer conversations and who go like, yeah, once the product is developed, we got to hire some salespeople. And that's ridiculous. You have to do it yourself for the feedback, for the understanding of the customer. So important. Thank you for bringing this up.
Yeah, and just in comparison, I opened a restaurant back in the day, and I was in the restaurant industry. And one of the things that the owner and the founder, when they expanded and they got a partner, is that you need to even wash dishes. I don't care. You have to have 2 days of washing dishes, because if you don't understand the flow and everything, you're not going to know where you can dive into to make it better, to flow it. And it is like you need to play all the roles, and even more important, as you were saying, getting that feedback. So we did that. We started getting some traction, and also you're gonna start building your stories. I think the number one thing, if you ask me, what's the number one thing that a salesperson needs to have and needs to build in order to sell a product, is stories. I think stories sell everything. If you don't
Yes.
have a story, and that's why it's so hard when you have a new business, is that you don't have those stories yet. your stories are more about you, about who you are, but you can tell your customer, yeah, I had a customer like you that this happened and this is what we did and it
Mhm.
worked out for them, right? Then that being reliable in that sense, it helps a lot. So you build your stories, then we hire our first salesperson. I was going to say AE, we call it AE, but it was a full cycle salesperson. So he was doing some outbound, he was taking the calls, and he was also doing some of the management of the account. As we grow, we start, and we knew from the beginning that we wanted to start specializing the different sections of the sales process. So we kept growing. PPC started becoming more and more of a stronger channel. So inbound started to become a stronger channel through Google Ads. Google Ads started working very well. Then the sales reps started getting busier and busier with inbound. Then we hire another sales rep to focus on inbound, and they were both
Mhm.
doing they were taking care of all the inbound leads. There was no BDR or SDR. This is the whole controversy in the
Mhm.
sales industry. What is a BDR? What's an SDR? It's one inbound, one outbound.
Mhm.
But in
What's your
that time, we
definition?
didn't.
What is an SDR for you?
For me, was outbound for a really long time. But then we had with our CEO, we had a whole discussion of 30 minutes, which probably was, I don't know if it was the best way of our time to use, but we just got into it. He wanted to say BDR. So right now I'm in between. I just go whatever you think, inbound or
Yeah,
outbound.
yeah. So this is in general, we just need to be clear what it means between you and me. Like, how do we use this term? It's the same with what is a lead, what is a sales accepted lead, what is a sales qualified lead. We need to have that internally clear. So we are talking about the same things, and I know what you're talking about when you say SQL or when you say SDR. We need to have the definition clear. Everything else doesn't matter. There is no right or wrong. Just make sure that you have that conversation and make sure you know what you're talking about and that you mean the same thing. And then you can call it pink elephants. Doesn't matter. It's still an SDR. My definition is SDR does inbound, BDR does outbound.
And
That's
that's
how I like to think about this. But then we are in the discussion, what is inbound? What is outbound? And that can be very tricky if you dive deep. It's an unresolved issue. How big is your sales team today?
today, it's 8 people.
8 people. But
But
that's
now,
already, yeah,
but
that's
this is
on the
now
on the
includes
brink
client
of,
success.
yeah, that's on the brink of, there's the two pizza rule that you're probably familiar with. If you have more people in a room than you can feed with two pizzas, then the meeting is going to be not effective. So you're on the brink. As you keep growing, you're probably going to have to build some second level management that monitors smaller groups. Your current main lead generation move is still paid traffic, or
It,
what is your main lead generation source?
It's a mix. It is paid traffic and it's outbound. As far as quantity, paid traffic is what gives us the most
Mhm.
opportunities at that and is giving us most of the revenue as well. But per account and per lead, we're seeing great success with outbound. It's just not the quantity. And this is something
Mhm.
that we're currently working on because we want to increase. Because on the outbound channel, we always have seen a higher ticket, a higher ACV from that
Mhm.
side. So basically each deal it has a higher annual contract value and then also a lot more success and the conversion rate from meeting to deal and from deal to customer has been a lot higher in the outbound side than the inbound side.
Really? I don't get to hear this a lot. I get to hear the inbound leads are the hand raisers that contact us are the easy converters, and the outbound are the hard ones. Why do you think that? Why? What makes you so successful? Why do you think that your outbound is converting so good?
I would say part of it is the prospecting and staying focused on your ICP
Mhm.
and knowing who you're talking to. And also, as far as the messaging and what we're saying, we're telling you who we are, what we think, how we can solve your problem. But we're also not
Mhm.
hiding that we want to talk to you to see if we can sell you and you can use our product. So when they raise their hand, they're really interested. They have the
Mhm.
option. You know what I mean? It is okay. Oh, I got another annoying email pitching me.
Mhm.
If they raise their hand, it's because they really what we have seen is that they really wanna dive deep and talk into it. That's because we're keeping it very close to our ICP, and we're trying our best to, like, I think our SDR outbound rep, it does a really good job at prospecting. We don't get, that's why I was saying, as far as quantity, we don't get a lot of meetings, but that conversion is great. That conversion, it's in the 80s and 90s from meeting to deal.
Oh,
So
wow.
80% to 90%. But I do want to open up and increase that quantity of leads. And that's what I'm working on, because I do want more opportunities at bat, right? Like, I want a little bit more conversations, more things that maybe it might not be our exact ICP, but it might be something one that we can service and we can help achieve their goals as well.
Interesting. Before we run out of time, multiple questions that I still want to get into this interview. Let's talk real quick about machine generated content. And we are talking copy. We are not talking video. We are not talking music. We are not talking images. We're talking written content. Machine generated versus human written content. There are use cases for both. There are good reasons to use machine AI generated content like ChatGPT, and there are good reasons to sit down and write contents manually. Explain to our listeners where you draw the line in the sand. What should still be written with by hand?
So in general, when we're talking about content in general in the marketing scope, I think long form, more in-depth content should be written by hand. It should be, and definitely more thought leadership pieces should be written by hand. Like, the whole name of thought leader, it definitely, if you need a thought leader, you definitely need someone to analyze the information. And I don't think AI necessarily analyzes it. It definitely puts it in context, but you need to interact with the machine in order to get an outcome that you're happy with. And that's that interaction, depending how much interaction you want to do and where you want to get to. So I think there is some content that you could create with machine learning, and that's why we offer AI assisted content, not just AI content, which where there's an editor that knows about the topic and is working with the machine and with different kinds of solutions. They don't only work with ChatGPT, they work with ChatGPT 3, ChatGPT 4, depending on the need, with Claude, depending on the need, with Bard, depending on the need, and then to get the best outcome and put this content together. So I think long form is a human written, or at least a human being involved is key and is very important. Then
Thanks for pointing this out, because it's really correct to what I said was not correct. The question is not between two options, written or machine written. There is something in between. This is the human written, but the human made more productive with the help of technology. But it's still the human with superpowers, with copywriting superpowers now, that writes your content. And this is, I believe, this is the perfect combination.
I think the best way to think about it is when you're using AI. Now, a lot of us are using AI in our daily lives. Why do you double check what you don't? Hey, if you're doing some math in order to close a business, and you might use ChatGPT to give you like an analysis or some math, you're going to double check it, right? You're going to make sure. And it does, because it does has hallucinations and it does make mistakes, and you need to check it. You need to make sure, and you might find out that doing it yourself would have taken you less time. And how important that information and what that information is going to do, you need to be very careful with. One of the examples on our business that we do is, for example, for finance clients that are writing about different interest rates and different things that are constantly changing day to day. Our writers need to do that research, compare two rates. Even within the same bank, on their website, you might find two different rates that are being posted. And this is what machine learning is grabbing, right? They can't call the bank and say, hey, which one is the right one? What should we do? What should I use? And that's where our great writers and researchers do in order to make sure that the content is accurate. And you want to be, there's some industries that you want to be more careful with, because there's regulations. There's also a lot of compliance that you need to make sure that it's accurate. And also the impact, again, overall, the impact, I think, is very important. And the impact, that content, you write it, but you don't know who's reading that. And they might base a very important decision in their lives about that content. They might just
Mm.
that right now they're going to get a new car and they're trying to figure out what's the interest, what's going to be my payment, and then they get into it through your content and it's wrong, and then they're going to realize that they can't pay that payment each month and they're going to be in trouble, right? And you're affecting a whole life in that sense. So I
Yeah.
think it's very important to focus on the accuracy and the
Mm.
best information and content that we can provide, because we're relying more and more on the internet, which it's a dangerous thing as well. Don't take it, and we're taking
You
it
can be,
directly from the internet to action.
and you can be in jeopardy very easy. When I was in walking in your shoes in a different company, our main focus was product descriptions, e-commerce. And there is, number one, there is a lot of liability and regulation, and you're probably regulated without knowing it. You don't need to be a bank to be regulated and to have the need for compliance. If you promise that your product does something that it doesn't do, then, well, in the best way, you have only returns, but the returns can be very expensive. Depending of if you sell shoes, it's probably not that bad. But if you sell furniture and you have returns because your product description sucks, then that's a big problem. That will cost you a lot of money. If your product description doesn't answer important questions, then your support line has to answer this, and you're burning money on support agents on the hotline answering those questions. It has impact on your checkout rate and your sales rate. Having humans, there are still things that humans should check and that only humans know, and that impacts the quality of your content and you impacts your bottom line. I'm totally with you. Alejandro, we are running out of time. I could go on with you for hours. Before we finish, real quick, if I would have a time machine and I could send a postcard to the 5 year younger Alejandro Angel with a warning, with an advice, what to do, what not to do, what would you tell the 5 younger self? What advice would you give yourself?
That's a really good question, and I would say to implement stronger structure from the beginning or earlier in the journey of these 5 years, to implement a structure to gather better feedback from the lead to the customer as far as what's the impact that our products is actually creating in their company, like from the beginning, just really knowing. And I dive it deeper than, oh, you create more traffic, that's it. But how are you measuring? How are you going to do that? How, and not be afraid, because at the beginning you're a little bit afraid of, okay, what if it didn't work? And your service you're offering might work for some, might not work for some. There's a lot of different things that can happen depending on how it's implemented and everything. And you start controlling it. But if you always are getting that feedback and then you're knowing what you're affecting, you can take that to the product, to your sales team, to make your whole organization better and get better results. So I think, and if the product changes, as it has happened in this year, if the industry changes, then you know if your product's still creating the impact that should create, and if it's not, how to look for a solution that solves this.
Can I sign somewhere? Because I think you're 100% spot on. If you gather feedback, if you do jobs to be done interviews, for instance, with your customers, more likely than not, you'll find out that your customers buying are buying your product for an entirely different reason that you think they're buying it for. Absolutely, I'm with you on this. All right, everyone. That brings us to the end of this episode of Speak Revenue. I want to thank our guest, Alejandro, for joining us and sharing his insights. Huge shout out to our listeners. Your support means the world to us. Remember to check our website at speakrevenue.com for a full transcript and additional resources. And if you enjoyed the show, please leave us a great review on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you go for your listening needs. It really helps to get the word out. Also, follow us on LinkedIn, on Insta, on YouTube, and wherever you can find us. And we'll be back soon with another great guest. Until then, stay curious, keep learning, stay safe, and see you soon. Goodbye.